Dr. Ali, do you think there really is a place for politics and this kind of Islamophobia for that fight to happen in Parliament, in Westminster?
Absolutely there is, because actually this present government has passed the most draconian laws that we've seen in decades, and the anti-terror legislation has been used and abused by the police on the streets of London. And, you know, for example, what is this government doing? Recruiting Israeli tactics on the streets of London, and we saw also the Jean-Charles de Menezes tragedy on the Underground as well as a result of shoot to kill. As far as, you know, Islamophobia, we've seen that very directly as a consequence of the charges. 70-odd predominantly British Muslims who were peacefully protesting by and large, maybe they threw a bottle or so. What is that compared to the grave and heinous and unconscionable actions of Israel on the population of Gaza for a period of weeks in January last year? So, of course, it's not even that, even if Green politicians weren't going to make just laws, even if we did nothing, we'd be doing a darn sight better than what's gone on in the current regime. Just going back to the earlier question, it's difficult to weave it in, but
try you will.
As far as green jobs are concerned, I mean, it's all connected with social justice, of course, but instead of this government also bad laws and bad initiatives trying to prop up unsustainable car industries, as my friend has pointed out, you know, they could be properly geared towards green jobs, sustainable industries, wind turbine manufacture, instead of actually pumping in billions of pounds in Trident renewal, we would be putting that into green jobs. We're the only party who's actually putting our money where our mouth is. Instead of the Lib Dems piffling £3 billion towards green jobs, we're committing £44 billion. And so we're putting our money where our mouth is, even though it's going to take a long time, actually, to overhaul an unjust economic system.
All right, I believe we've got a caller on the line. Welcome to the programme, caller. What's your question?
I wanted to put the question of immigration to our panellists. A lot of the supporters of the old Labour Party, back when it had far more social democratic values, have actually taken a huge shift to the right, and particularly with the rise of the British National Party. And I was wondering how you would approach this issue.
Hugo, let's start with you. This is a very hot topic for the Socialist Party.
It is a very, very hot topic, and obviously something that's caught Gordon Brown out, you know. And of course, we respect the rights of workers around the world to go and find a living. We would fight for those rights, but we also think that it's important that workers travelling around different parts of the world aren't used to undermine the wages and conditions, and that's what we're seeing in this country. Again, we saw at the beginning of last year, we saw the big dispute that took place in Lindsey Oil Refinery, where workers were being brought over from Europe, effectively, to come and undercut the wages and conditions of the workers that worked in that oil refinery. Now, we're not opposed to those workers coming over. In fact, the workers themselves, the British workers, for want of a better word, in the Lindsey Oil Refinery, wanted to join forces with the migrant workers that had been brought there to make sure that they were on the same terms and conditions of those workers. We believe that immigration is being used to undercut the wages and conditions of, of workers that are already here in this country.
Very, very briefly, Dr. Ali, you get about 20 seconds on this one. I'm so sorry.
The Green Party would seek to reframe immigration debates in terms of the wider historic injustice that a lot of people around the world have faced in the hands of colonial empires. And also, you know, every time we invade another country, we're actually causing strife. We're forcing people out of those countries. At the same time, think about the 5 million people who are actually living abroad from the UK. There's almost an equivalence between emigration and immigration net. So we need to get that in perspective and context.
All right, let's see who else is up. I believe it's James. Welcome to the programme.
Hi, how you doing?
What's the question, sir?
My question's directed at the Green Party, and it's more relating to an international issue. Assuming that the development criteria is the best one to use, do you think that the specifications relating to developed and developing countries should be changed so that certain countries that do produce a larger global CO2 emissions have to do more than just reduce their carbon intensity?
Right up your street, Dr. Ali.
Well, there is so much wrong with the carbon pricing mechanism adopted by the European Union, and within that, I think implicit in the questioner's remark, which is absolutely right to question it, is the development ideology. We're against that kind of global corporate capitalism. I mean, even with fair trade goods, I mean, although it might sound nice on the label, a lot of that is still resulting from workers in exploitative conditions. And we need to make sure, instead of having people producing coffee for the rest of their lives for consumers in the rich West, that they're actually growing things that they can themselves eat, which at the moment they can't afford to buy those things back to feed themselves. That's completely unsustainable. Think also of biofuels, which is one of these, fairly newer technologies. That has given rise to great strife in the African and Asian continents, and they've actually got together the governments to actually tell us that and assert themselves.
Hugo, let me just bring you in very quickly here. We talk about this development ideal. Do you think social justice and the development ideal are two things that should work hand in hand?
Well, I just wanted to come on to, just before I answer that, this question of carbon pricing, because we're completely opposed to the question of carbon pricing. It's not going to work. It really is just a method for the industries to palm off their carbon credits or their carbon taxes onto other industries or to poor industries to try and increase their profits. It's not going to work. The biofuels thing, the reports have now shown that biofuels will have no effect on reducing the impact of the carbon emissions.
I do wish the two of you would work together a little bit more there. I think we've got another caller. Welcome to the programme. Oh, I think that one's a question. Please, roll.
How is each political party on a global level basically going to address the kind of problem of the environment and climate change?
Dr. Ali, this used to be specifically and almost exclusively Green Party territory, but from David Cameron showing how good he is with a pair of skis to Gordon Brown, everybody's jumped on this bandwagon. I guess the first argument would have to be, do you feel like the thunder's been taken away from your party a little bit?
No, not exactly, because although the politicians think it might be in their interest to talk about it, when they actually go to their conferences, for example, Cameron's a good example, in 2006 he went to party conference, asked them about, putting taxes on flights, and they said a resounding no. So it's even frustrating for him, even if he actually believed in it. In terms of the questioner, basically, we need to address our own lifestyles. We're actually consuming far more than the planet can actually sustain. And in the rich West, we need to be tackling that question head on. So I would say, for a start, in the long term, we need to be looking at carbon rationing, which isn't the same as carbon pricing. It doesn't mean you can trade on it. And if you want more, you need to kind of buy it from somebody who hasn't used all, that they're entitled to. We have to say that each of us needs to use far less and then to be reducing it so that we're coming down to the levels that are, being used by the developing countries.
But Hugo, do your prospective voters want to hear about tough individual choices? It's all well when it belongs to somebody else, but when this is something that needs to be made at a household level, isn't this a vote loser? Well,
you see, I think, again, I think this would be where we would have a big departure of the Green Party. We don't believe that it's the individual consumers that are the ones, or individuals necessarily, that are the ones that are causing this huge carbon problem and the huge climate problem that we see developing over the course of the next few years. In fact, really, this is an international problem that needs to be solved with an international solution. And the key producers of greenhouse gases are the huge multinational corporations, whether they be in the West or whether they even be in places like China or in other parts of the world. And there needs to be a way of bringing those companies to heel, really. There needs to be a way.
Well, just as I thought that harmony had broken out
No,
right
but
there.
Just quickly on that, I mean, that's a misunderstanding or a misconstrued of what I've said. Yeah. The individual is key in this, but so are multinationals. The two are not mutually exclusive.
All right, we'll leave that right there.